I'm Lisa Federico, and this is Inside Northwest Columbus. After spending decades in corporate marketing, I traded boardrooms for backyards because the best stories are happening right here at home. Every week, you'll meet entrepreneurs, creatives, and everyday neighbors doing extraordinary things across Worthington and Northwest Columbus. So let's jump into this week's conversation. Welcome to Inside Northwest Columbus. I'm your host, Lisa Federico. I am so excited to have Celeste Malvar Stewart with us today. Celeste is not only a fiber artist, but a well-known, internationally exhibited fashion designer located right here in Columbus, and she's also a fashion educator. Welcome to the show, Celeste. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, good. For those of you that have not seen our September issue, we have featured Celeste. We went out on a workshop that she had at a local farm in Springfield. And oh my gosh, everyone had such an amazing time. It's so interesting what you do. But before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about your background, your fashion journey. You were born in the Philippines. You grew up in San Francisco. You made your way over to New York, and then somehow you got here to Columbus. Can you take us through that journey?
Yes, it's been, when you put it that way, it's been quite a journey. But yes, had a wonderful time growing up in the Mission District in San Francisco and with my family, and went to university in London, England to learn fashion, and I got my degree in fashion design and merchandising. Then I went back home to San Francisco, and I met this wonderful man and ended up marrying him, and off we went to Seattle, Washington, because he was going to grad school. And then I continued to design throughout the time in the different cities where we lived. And then after that, he did a postdoc in Michigan. We went to Michigan, and then from Michigan, we moved to New York City, and it's been wonderful, since then. We stayed there for about 6 years, and then his whole team got recruited here to OSU and Nationwide Children's Hospital, and we thought we were coming here for just a few years, and we haven't left.
And so you love it.
We love it.
And how's the fashion industry here in Columbus?
It's really thriving. I mean, it's surprising because I think a lot of people think, Ohio, the Midwest, and what's really happening. Growing up in San Francisco, living in New York City, fashion is sort of taken for granted in those cities where we know we have a sense of style. And then you come here and you find out that it has we have the third largest concentration of fashion designers in the United States.
I know. Who knew, right?
We know, and everybody should know.
I didn't know. And that's why we're here.
Yes, so we love having that, amazing talent here in the city. And, although a lot of designers are in the corporate section of fashion here, we do have many independent fashion designers, and there's so much talent here. And we all sort of know one another and are collaborative, and it's really a wonderful community.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very vibrant. And I want people to know that we've got lots of fashion events and things like all year long. I'm not so sure that people know that. So I'm excited to get into all of that with you. When did you know that fashion was the direction that you wanted to move into? How did that come about?
Well, I think I knew when I was about 3 years old, and my mom would tell me that I would go and pick my own outfits out that I want to wear. And I must have known then, but I think, I wanted to be an artist as I grew up in San Francisco. And it was during an era where they would say, you're going to be a starving artist. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just do fashion. I wasn't as wise as I am. I mean, as the kids nowadays are. So I was thinking, well, I'll do fashion instead. And when I went to university to take fashion design, it was just wonderful. So I knew that was the direction I wanted to go in.
Yeah. Okay. And so when you moved here from New York, were you freaking out like, oh my God, what am I going to do in Columbus as a fashion designer? How did all that transpire?
Yes, we were the last to come. I mean, I came kicking and screaming because I was like, what am I going to do in Ohio, in fashion? And I tried to do the research, and, there were a few brands here and a few people that I was interested in. But once I got here, I realized again that there really is a fashion scene. And it was a nice time to come to Columbus because we still are trying to define where we are in terms of the fashion scene here in Columbus. And so it's a wonderful time to be a part of that, and be a part of like really giving the world a chance to see our city in terms of fashion and how we compare to the other big cities, not just in the United States, but around the world. And we can give them a run for their money. I mean, we've got some real talents here. So
And what is it about Columbus that makes it so unique and makes it so hospitable for all these fashion designers? You mentioned that statistic that we have the third largest population, right, of fashion designers in Columbus. We're third only to New York and Los Angeles, which is like highly surprising. But what is it about Columbus that makes it so unique?
Well, I think, of course, we have all the brands here that attract the fashion designers, but there's something about the culture here. And I've traveled to many places. I just got back from London, and I was comparing it to Columbus because Columbus has this wonderful culture of embracing one another and wanting to collaborate. And it feels like you can call anyone up in the city, no matter what they do, and say, can I come talk to you about something? And they'll be so welcoming, which is very difficult in other cities, especially San Francisco, New York, where it's not just the competition, it's about the culture.
Yeah.
And so, we could call our city council president and you can meet with him. So I think it's really unique, and I hope we can preserve that part of this city because I think it's wonderful.
Fantastic. Now, we had been talking earlier, and you're currently exhibiting in Cuba. You've exhibited in Japan. Can you talk a little bit about your career and kind of where you are right now? I'm fascinated by your international exhibitions.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, I had the honor of showing at the Bienal de La Habana, which was in Cuba. And there was a handful of Columbus artists who showed. And there were two fashion designers, myself and Joan Madison, who's actually on Project Runway right now. And we got to do some work and show there. It was the first time for them to include fashion, so it was a great honor. And right now, my piece is sort of traveling around different galleries and museums throughout Cuba. I don't really know how long it will be traveling, but it's there, and I send it flying kisses every day. But so, yeah, that's been really fun. I've shown, in Japan, I had a few garments that were naturally dyed, and there was a natural dye biennale there as well many, many years ago. And I've shown in England. I mean, I went to undergrad there, so we've had a few exhibitions there as well.
Fantastic. What a career. And you're located right here in Columbus, which is fantastic. We're so lucky to have you.
Thank you. I'm fortunate to be here. So.
Let's talk a little bit about your work, because your work is super unique. The whole process, I know that you focus on alpacas and that you have an affinity for working with local farms and using that in your fiber creations. But talk a little bit about how that came to be and what you do.
Well, I think it came to be because, the industry is such a wasteful industry. And I love fashion, but as I started to develop my brand when I moved back to San Francisco right after graduating, I was realizing that there was so much waste involved in my very, very small brand. And so there were literally big barrels that were filling up and overflowing with waste. And it made me realize, this is little old me and my brand, and what are the bigger brands doing and what are they doing with their waste? And do I want to be responsible for creating fashion knowing that I'm also adding to this waste that is really destructive to our environment. So I decided, well, if I can have more control over the fiber and actually create the textiles that I use to make my clothing, my fashion, then I'd be able to use minimal to no waste. And then I became very obsessed with no waste design and construction. And so I went back to school, got my master's degree in textiles and fashion, and I discovered this wonderful technique called felting, which it's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, way of creating textiles known to humankind. And so I started to felt pieces and realized that I can felt these garments using the fiber from local farmers. And so when we moved here to Ohio, I sort of cold called for farmers. And I said, there are a lot of farms here. My husband is also a private pilot. We had this little plane and we were flying over different farms throughout Ohio. And I kept pointing out the sheep, and I was like, there's sheep. And I said, well, you know what? If there's sheep here, there must be wool that I can use. And so I cold called 4 of them. One of them called me back, God bless Rachel. And she called me back and said, I have these sheep, but I'm not really sure you want to use their wool because there's a lot of stuff in it, a lot of a lot of dirt,
farm stuff.
A lot of farm stuff. And I said, no, I'm willing to work with, wool with a lot of farm stuff. And I went to visit her. And that's when I met my first sheep named Gandalf, who's a Lincoln long wool. And he recently passed away. So I'm still mourning him. Thank you. And I used his wool, and I ended up creating a collection for Aveda because I was partners with Aveda at the time, and they had a tribute show to their founder, and I used all of Gandalf's wool and realized that I can do this. I can create beautiful pieces that are very mindful and that have minimal to no waste, and that sort of started me on this path.
Yeah. Can you explain to our audience what is felting? Give us a sense of what goes into that and what it is.
Yes, felting is fascinating. It's a non-woven textile that is strategically taking the fibers from an alpaca or a sheep. You can use any fiber that has scales on it and placing them strategically atop a base fabric, which is what I do. It's called nuno-felting. And you take those fibers and you place them atop a base fiber or fabric, and you moisten them with sort of hot soapy water or warm soapy water, and then you agitate them. And then when you do that, they sort of intertangle into one another. Their little scales open up and intertangle. And once they're intertangled, it becomes a permanent textile. And so after you do that, you're able to just pull out this really solid piece of textile that we know as felt.
Yeah. And then that's what you use primarily in your designs.
I do. I use lots of silks, linens. I've been playing with hemp a lot. And then I will felt aspects of the garments as well. So it's sort of a combination. I'm a tailor as well. So I will tailor some, fine woolens and things like that, and then incorporate the felted textiles into that as well.
Yeah. So. If you're enjoying today's episode, you won't want to miss what we've got coming up in October. Our next issue of Northwest Columbus City Lifestyle is all about food. We're featuring signature recipes straight from some of your favorite local restaurants right here in Northwest Columbus. Think of it as a taste of the neighborhood delivered to your inbox. And on the podcast, we're serving up fresh conversations with local chefs, makers, food entrepreneurs who are building community one plate at a time. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a thing, and head to the link in the show notes for exciting offers or to sign up for digital issues of our magazine. Where do you find the inspiration for your collections?
This question always gets me because most designers have such great answers, and I'm always, I think I find inspiration everywhere, but I think where I find motivation that is based on inspiration is sort of the context of our times and what what our issues are and what our concerns are and what is wonderful and what is terrible. So there's always something with my work and my collection that is addressing something. So right now, for example, I'm working on a wedding collection, which is called Wedding Arena. And I'm creating pieces that fall across all different genders and all different, sexual preferences and all these things. I was going to call it wedding line, but or bridal, and I feel like bridal is very specific. So I think one of the things, with all of the attention and with all of our LGBTQ friends having a hard time, constantly having to fight for things, it seems like there should be more consideration, especially in the bridal and wedding arena. And so that's something, it's sort of my small way of addressing that and saying, I see you, and how can I help your community, because you are part of my community, and how can we help one another get through, especially these hard times? How can we do that? And I can do it through fashion.
Yeah.
So.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
I want to go back to something you said about the industry, the fashion industry being fraught with waste and pollution. Can you give our readers a sense of what does that mean? Where does that come from? How does that manifest?
Yes. So, there's a lot of it that we don't see, especially in this country, because we don't have a lot of manufacturing done in this country. So you can see it very clearly in developing countries where it's difficult for them. And of course, also the poverty in, these areas where there's more poverty, they're more affected. So, for example, if we have a line of denim created where it's not mindfully made, it starts from already the cotton, right? So just to grow the cotton to make the denim, there are cotton fields that may have most of them do have pesticides and insecticides, which affect the ground and the soil, which in turn affect the water systems and the water throughout. So if you're in a little village and they're growing fields and fields of cotton and they're just spraying them with insecticides and pesticides, it's going to affect you and your community, because all of that runs off into other things. So that's just from the fiber. Then there is collecting the fiber, or the labor. Is the labor fair? Are we paying fair wages? Sustainability it encompasses the big pillars of not just environment, but also economy and society. So these are things we have to consider. So I consider that part of this great waste as well, right, of human labor and things like that. So then there's the manufacturing where they may be finishing, dyeing a lot of the denim now. It used to be where we dyed it with indigo, which is how we got blue jeans. Now it's mostly synthetic, and all of that runs off into the water systems as well. And a lot of, people have allergies and everything to the different toxins, and also the finishing. So there are a lot of sprays and things, chemicals that are used to finish, like jeans. If you have a crease that looks really cool in your jeans, it could have been created using a finish that could be toxic possibly. So it's just, and then of course, shipping things out and everything like that, and using what is the carbon footprint of that. So it's really the supply chain. It's really the materials that are used in the supply chain. And of course, the end users as well, where we don't have to wash our jeans as often as we do, because all of that doesn't have to go into our own water system. So it's just a mindfulness that I think we need to sort of give more attention to.
Yeah. And, there's a proliferation of fast fashion avenues now that maybe we didn't have years and years ago.
Yes.
But, you think about Temu and Shein, and, the fashion is lower cost, right? Which certainly helps people, but at what cost to the environment? And so that's why you really focus more on zero-based waste in your process.
Yes, and I believe that when I buy the fiber from local farmers, they're all family farms, and it's really supporting local. And I know the animals are well treated. And yes, when I know the animal, I don't want to waste their fiber. So in manufacturing, right, a lot of times, do we know at this moment who made what we are wearing? Most of the time we don't. And so there's no connection. And I think when they're manufacturing, like the pair of jeans, there's so much cut off, that there's a lot of post-consumer, pre-consumer waste just in manufacturing. And there's no value tied to that because there's no connection. So that's what I'm trying to create in my work, where there's some connection and we just care for it. And when we care for it, it is innately sustainable.
Yeah. And your fashion, your designs are not, they're not replicated over and over again. You really do couture design.
I do couture, so with couture, because it's specifically made for someone, those are one of a kind. But I also do one-off pieces, which means that they are the same design, but every single piece is still different because maybe the way I dye the fabric is different, even though, it might be a halter. I'm doing a series of halter tops right now, and they're beautiful silk halter tops that are all naturally dyed. So they're the same design, but each one is still different. And again, there's just that uniqueness to that as well.
Yeah. And so if the whole zero waste issue, right, is important to you, how do we make better buying decisions so that we can focus more on sustainable buying decisions? How do you do that as a consumer?
I think consumers now are so much smarter than I was when I was.
Well, we have so many avenues, right, to be able to get information, right?
Yes, it's wonderful. I'm grateful for those avenues. But I think really the mindfulness of how we consume, we're always going to consume. It's just what we do. But how do we do that, I think, is important. And so I think a good way in terms of fashion and what we wear it's a great place to start is by looking in our own closets. There's so much that we have. Usually, the average American has so much. We usually have enough clothes that we can actually wear for the rest of our lives.
Agree. Guilty.
But it's great because then you can go back and look in your own closet and see, how to put things together differently. There are lots of classes now where they teach, they have stylists. We have some great stylists right here in Columbus where they can show you how to put looks together a little bit differently. You can upcycle some pieces by changing them a little bit. You can alter them slightly. You can mend something that you love to continue, just push that lifetime out a little bit more. And so I think it's really the mindfulness of that. It's okay to still buy things now, but when you buy it, just be mindful that is it something that will last? Is it something that you can wear for the next 20 years? Is it something that you'll want to wear for the next 20 years? And that is sustainable. It's not realistic to just say I'm not buying anything anymore.
Yeah. So if I want to contract with you for a one-of-a-kind piece, right? Whether it's bridal, whether it's evening wear, what have you. Tell me about that process. How does that work? I've never worked with a couture designer before.
You haven't?
No. And so I want to know all the tea. How does that process work?
It's really wonderful. And I would say, I know a lot of people will say, well, I can't afford it. There's always some way to buy a piece that is specifically made for you. Even if it's working with a new graduate, it's a good time to find these incredibly talented designers that are newly graduated because they want to put their stuff out there. And you can get a pretty good deal because they're not there yet in their career. But you would go to a designer like myself, and you can find me through the showroom that represents me. So here in Columbus, I'm represented by Iro Showroom, and it's a showroom right in German Village, and it's run by Priscilla Jomo, which she's incredible, and she's beautiful, and she's been in the industry. She's a model, she's a photographer, a stylist, and she's very she curates her brands very well, so she's very mindful about our story and retelling our story. And so you would go there, and you'd make an appointment with them, and you'd go there, and she would show you the different pieces that are available in my brand. I love to know my customers, and I like to meet them even if they don't place an order. I want to just talk to people and see what they are looking for and how they feel, and just tell them the story of Gandalf and Ray Ray, my favorite alpaca, and how sweet they are. And so you would go there to the showroom, and I would meet you, and we would go through different designs, and you would tell me what it is that you were looking for. Lots of times people have very specific things that they're looking for. Maybe you're going to a cocktail event that you want, a simple dress. And we'd go over different designs with you, and I would talk to you about what colors you like. Because I use all natural dyes, I'm able to make different tones and colors, but I'm not very seasonal. So a lot of times I'll use the dyes of the season, which is kind of like eating the food of the season. It just feels right.
Yeah.
And so you would choose that. I would take your measurements. You'd talk with Priscilla a little bit more, and we'd talk about dates and delivery times. And then I would create a toile, which is a preliminary garment of what it is that you ordered. For my felted pieces, a lot of times I can't create toiles because they fit like a glove, and they all, knock on wood, they always usually do because it's very precise. I take up to 32 measurements, and it's very precise.
Wow.
But then if it's sewn, then you would come and try your toile. So you'd do a fitting of your toile, and then I'd make adjustments, and then I'd go back and maybe redo the patterns or whatever. I draft all the patterns specifically for you. And then I would create your piece, and you'd come in and do a fitting with the actual piece, and we'd do any adjustments we need then. And then you would later come in to pick up your final piece. And all of my pieces are guaranteed. So, for example, bridal wear, a lot of brides, they want these beautiful cream gowns but they don't really want to wear it afterwards. So they can come in, we can alter their gowns a little bit, and then I will dye them in any natural dye that they would like so they can continue using the gowns. And then anything I cut off, we would reuse that. And a lot of times it's even for like the christening
that's
baby
nice.
Gowns. So yeah, and then I always am open to the lifetime of the garment. If for some reason somebody doesn't want it anymore, I'll rehome it because they're very special. But I haven't had that in the 30 years that I've been that I've been doing this. Thank goodness I haven't had that. Most people will hand them down. They turn into, these wonderful family heirlooms, and
it's interesting. Just like we have a connection to food,
yes,
we do have a connection with the things that we love, like fashion, right?
Yes.
We all have that favorite gown or that favorite pair of shoes or something that's special, like a bridal gown or something like that, that we would hand down, right? I think in the world of fast fashion, I don't know that we maintain that connection, but investing in quality pieces that you absolutely love, just give them such a much longer life.
They do.
And that's what you're really helping people with, right? Is creating that connection and zero waste and everything that goes on top of that.
I hope so. And, there's nothing like a garment that fits you perfectly. A lot of times we'll find garments that are off the rack, ready to wear, and we'll say, oh, I love this. This is my favorite dress because it fits me so well. So imagine having a garment specifically made for you. You would have that feeling, immediately because it is indeed made for you. And so I think everybody should have a chance to feel that. There's really nothing like it. And it changes the way you think about clothing and fit once you experience it.
Yeah. And when you work with a designer like yourself, my measurements may change over the years, right? But then I can work with you to continue to create that happiness in the design that you've created for me.
Yes, absolutely. We create basic blocks when you come in. So we keep those blocks, and they are only yours because they're specifically made to your measurements. And if you were to come in again and ask for something, we would look at those blocks again and just update them if it's been a while, especially, but it's really specifically for you. And I love my custom blocks. I mean, they all have the customers' names, and sometimes I don't see them after 5 or 6 years, and I see them again, and I get to pull blocks out, and there's something really special about that.
Didn't get the magazine at home? No problem. You can read it for free by signing up for our digital issues. Just head to the link in the show notes. And hey, if you're just listening to this episode, did you know you can watch it too? Catch the full video on YouTube, link below. Do we have a lot of showrooms in Columbus that represent other designers? Or is there just a handful? How does that work?
Yeah, we've only really, there are a few that are online, but Iro showroom is very unique in that sense that it's a physical showroom that you can go and see the pieces, and there's something about that that's really wonderful. We're not there yet in Columbus with showrooms, compared to New York and things like that, but I think we're getting there because I think a lot of designers are looking for representation as well.
Yeah, and it seems to be from an economic development standpoint. I thought that I had heard that we were investing in more fashion-oriented types of businesses in the fashion district, for example. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about how that's changed since you first came to Columbus?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that, thanks to our city council and our state or city government and state governments, they're really recognizing fashion, and even organizations like the Greater Columbus Arts Council, where the Columbus Arts Festival has been including a fashion show for the last 3 years, and it's been very, very popular. And so I think that, yes, we're trying to have more fashion representation, and it's really been the community and the people that are in charge of these organizations and government that are saying, okay, you do have value. And we, of course, have value because it is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it's wise for us to catch on to that industry here in the city because we can keep our talent here as well. A lot of times they go off onto the big cities. But if we have more platforms for supporting us, we'll stay here. And I'm very grateful for all the different platforms that have been developing. It's much different now from the 10 years ago that we moved here.
Yeah, and you put on a couple different really large shows every year. Can you talk a little bit about that? The one you mentioned, you had 800 people at.
Yes. The Columbus Arts Festival. We open for the Columbus Arts Festival on the Friday night of when the festival begins, and we show at Genoa Park. And so Genoa Park is the back of Kozai, along the river. So it's really beautiful. We have the backdrop of the city, of downtown, but then we have these really big steps that are just there as part of the structure behind Kozai leading to the river, and that's where all of the guests will just go and sit because it's a free event. And so there literally are hundreds and hundreds of people that show up to our show, and, from age, 3 months old to, who knows how old, but it's really wonderfully diverse. And it's curated. So I curate that show through the Greater Columbus Arts Council, and they've been really wonderful in supporting emerging designers. So we'll usually pick 4 local Columbus-based designers that are really at the top of their game. Like we just had one this last summer, and there was something for everyone, and you would find beautifully tailored suits to a beautifully constructed caftan. So it just varies, and that's a really big one, and it's free again, so that's wonderful. And then there's another show that I produce at the Decorative Arts Center of Ohio in Lancaster, and it's for the DACO Gala, which is their annual fundraising event, and we also have that in the summer. And that one's more intimate. There's about 150 to 200 guests, and we usually have 5 to 6 designers, but it's wonderful because it's intimate. You can really see everything close up. You can talk to the designers, and they're very accessible. So that's another one that is becoming more and more popular, and it's really becoming a big event in Lancaster, which also has great exhibitions in terms of fashion as well.
Yeah, I did not realize that we had so many fashion events. And I guess it makes sense with all the fashion designers that we have here. It's such a vibrant community.
Yes.
I'm just so pleased that I've got a platform to be able to tell people about it and to be able to meet you as well. It's just been fantastic.
Thank you, Lisa.
Is there as a designer, is there a go-to outfit, right? Or a go-to style, right? That you gravitate towards when you're not designing?
Oh, yes. Actually, one of my favorite designers is Yohji Yamamoto, a Japanese designer who was a pioneer in the industry. And so I saved up and I bought this men's long shirt that has a print of one of his sketches of himself walking his dog. And it's buttoned up. So I tend to wear it I throw it over an outfit. I'll wear it open, or else I'll button it up and wear it as a dress and put it together. It's just such an easy piece to wear, but it's also really meaningful to me. Yohji is getting older, and I think about how much longer he'll be designing, and so it is a very valuable.
Yeah, holds a lot of emotional value for you
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
Since we are talking about fall fashion and design, are there trends that you're seeing that you might say this is a long time trend or this is something that's going to be with us for a while? Maybe the trend is more about sustainability and zero waste. I'd just be interested in your perspective on upcoming trends.
Yes, well, I just got back from London, England, so I had my eyes out.
Give us all the dirt.
So yes, I went to, all the high street shops, and I went to Bond Street shops. So I also went to Savile Row. So I was looking at that, which actually that is timeless, right? If you're thinking about a classic tailored suit. But I have noticed that there are more tailored pieces that are coming out and ready to wear. There's a lot of pleating that's coming back. There's a lot of wide leg trousers. The trouser legs are getting wider and wider, which I really personally enjoy. And I really do see sustainability and mindfulness being, I hope it's not a trend. I hope it's a ongoing direction that doesn't just come and go, but I hope that it's something that is here to stay. And a lot of brands are now talking about, using dead stock fabric and, very transparent with how they're manufacturing their brands. So I saw a lot of that as well. Lots of information that came with the fashion. And so trend or not in terms of the designs, I think the brands are moving in a beautiful direction of being more transparent.
Yeah. How can people connect with you? How can they find out more? And if you have any events coming up, can you share with us what's next for you?
Yes, thank you for asking. So they can find out more about me through airoshowroom.com, and that's AIRO showroom.com. I'm also very active. Well, I'm active on Instagram, and my Instagram is Malvar Stewart, and I like to show a lot of my sort of my little peeks into what I'm doing. I'm right now at the Contemporary Arts Center in Cincinnati. I've got an installation there where I did use Ray's fibers, my favorite alpaca. And I will be showing at the Museum of Contemporary Arts in Cleveland at the MoCA there early next year. There's an exhibition here that I'm planning at the Cultural Arts Center, which will be very fashion-based. And if you want to see a really cool exhibition that will show emerging young designers, they're at the Beeler Gallery on September 4th. I'm curating a alumni fashion show there. So picking the best from CCAD's fashion department, and they'll be showing their work. It will be the first alumni fashion show shown at Beeler Gallery, so It's really wonderful. But yeah, all those good things.
So we will put all of that in the show notes so that all of our listeners and viewers can grab that information and follow you. And I'm excited to see what's coming next, and I can't wait to get to one of your exhibitions. It was so fun to feature you in the magazine, and I'm so glad I was able to get you here in person. This was just fantastic.
This has been wonderful for me. Thank you for sharing.
And thank you for coming back from London just for our show. I really appreciate that, and so do our viewers.
My absolute pleasure.
that is going to be a wrap for Inside Northwest Columbus. I want to thank Celeste for being here today. You can get all this information about how to follow Celeste and how to see some of her design work in the show notes. And we will see you back here next week on Inside Northwest Columbus.
Boxland Media. Think big.